Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the final episode of the Talkin Knights Podcast. With you, as always, your host, Dalton Koller, and my special guest for this episode is fellow junior pitcher, Colten Zerby. Colten, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's a pleasure to have you on. All right, so basically all we're going to be doing in this final episode is just talking about, we're going to first start off, briefly go over the coaching staff. We have 4 coaches. We're going to have 4 coaches this year, which is the most we've had on the coaching staff since I've been here. And then we're going to go over the returning players, the new incoming players, and then go over the schedule a little bit, and then just last thing, go over our projected starting lineup and starting rotations. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the coach staff. Why not start with head coach Robert Stern? I believe this is his 8th year as the head coach. He has also coached for his travel team, the Mutts. He also coaches the Lingo's Talent 28 team, and he also helps out with Mo Self Baseball as well. So he's basically the main reason why I got here, when I'm here at Central Penn, because I basically, when I was coming out of high school, I was going to just follow baseball to whatever school I was going to. And then he took me on a visit. He convinced me to come here, and now I'm here. So what are your opinions on Stern? How did he convince you to come here, or something along those lines?
I think he does a pretty good job at going to showcases, finding some hidden talent between some players, that other people can't find.
Yeah, for sure. And then also, how did he get you to, did he get you to commit to Central Penn, or just, what did he do to convince you to come play for his baseball team?
There really wasn't much. He said, baseball and good school, free housing was a big thing for me, and close to home. He actually found me at a showcase down in the net. And then pretty much after that, it was set in stone.
No, yeah, because that was definitely a big thing for me, was the free housing. Once I saw that, I was basically in. There was nowhere really going nowhere else. All right, so now, talked about head coach Robert Stern. Now we're going to talk about pitching coach / probably going to be assistant head coach this year, Zach Sackerman. This will be his 2nd year on the coaching staff. He pitched for Mansfield University, and when he was in college, he also coached for the Keystone Nationals for a couple years, and now he's also working with Primal Baseball. But now, this is his 2nd year as a pitching coach. I assume he's going to be stepping into an assistant head coach role. What are your opinions on Sackerman? How do you feel he helped with the pitching staff to their success last year?
I think he does a very good job at keeping us all conditioned well throughout the season. Right now, I know almost every other day we're running 2.5, 3 miles. So that's something good to have. So your pitchers are fresh and they're ready for the games. Also, arm care was a huge thing. Him and Alex Loja from last year, which was a senior last year, they did a very good job at keeping our arms healthy.
No, yeah, for sure. And how would you say, when it comes to game time decisions, how much of a factor do you think he's had and will have in terms of keeping pitchers in when they should stay in, or taking them out when they should be taken out? How much of a factor do you think he plays into those game time decisions?
I think Stern respects his decisions, so he has a lot of say in who's going to be in, how many innings they're going to throw, and all that stuff when they should come out.
All right, so now we'll get on to the 3rd coach, Mike Lebo Jr. This is his 1st year on the coaching staff, and last year we had him come out to a couple of our practices last year to just help out with organization in the infield and just helping run the practice when we had, not a lot of coaches or just not a lot of people there to help run it. And this was when we were kind of going through a rough patch and we weren't necessarily playing our best baseball, so he and former Phillies player Steve Jeltz had to come in and help run the practices. And I would say, for me personally, in my 3 years being here, those were the best run practices since I've been here.
Yeah, no, Lebo definitely has a lot of experience in the game. He played over in the Australian Baseball League for pretty many years, came back, and he's spreading what he knows, his knowledge of baseball.
No, yeah, he was also one of the coaches on the coaching staff at Penn State Mont Alto when I was playing my freshman year, and then he did coach for Susquehanna last year. So even still, when he was coaching Susquehanna, he still found the time to come help out with us and run our practices. So how do you feel he's going to be impactful this year for our team?
I think he's a huge asset to the coaching staff just because of the way he can talk to people, kind of pick our players' minds, help them, what they should be thinking in the game, and kind of just keeping your head high and having fun when you're playing.
All right, and then the last coach we're going to be talking about, I did not know that this was a hire. Not to be disrespectful to him, but I think I think you know a little bit more about him than you do. So if you want to talk about our fourth and final coach.
Yeah, so this is a little bit of a surprise to whoever's going to be listening, but we are getting a new coach. His name is Justin Heckert. Used to play for, I think it was Dickinson. He was a pitcher, so he's also going to be helping with the pitchers this year. Younger guy, so he has knowledge, kind of, what we're thinking, how we do stuff already. So I think he'll be a big asset to, the arm care, conditioning, stuff like that. So also Sackerman can kind of take a break from all that and help Stern if he needs help.
So how much do you think he will be? I know you said, you're helping out Stern, helping out with Sackerman if he needs to help out with Stern at practices or game time, stuff like that. How much do you think he's going to have an impact on, necessarily like letting Stern or Sackerman know whenever like a pitcher is? Do you think he's going to have any impact on like making those kind of game time decisions along with Stern and Sackerman?
Definitely. I think it's a whole coaching decision really now as we have more coaches. So I think Stern and Sackerman both know Justin Heckert pretty well. So they'll also respect his decisions the same as they respected anybody else's.
All right, sounds good. All right, so now we've gone over the coaching staff a little bit. I think this is definitely the most, obviously it's the most coaches we've had since I've been here. And it's definitely also, I think, the most experienced coaches we've had since I've been here. So I think that's definitely going to be very key to helping us get to our goal, which all the coaches and all the players have said, is basically small college World Series or bust.
Yep.
All right, so real quick, we're just going to go over some of the returning players from last year. All right, so we're going to start off with the Nightly News MVP and definitely one of our key players from last year, Zach Boyer. Now, Zach Boyer, this is going to be his most likely final year on the team. Last year, he was tied for second the team lead with 25, had 34 hits, 5 doubles, 3 triples, 3 homers, which was tied for first on the team, 28 RBIs, which was also tied for first. He was first in total bases with 54 and first in extra base hits with 11. So he definitely had a very solid year. He was also named the USCAA First Team All-American. So he is definitely one of our key players, not just key players, key bats as well. So just speak to how Zach Boyer, how since you've been here, how you've seen his approach to the plate, and do you think he's going to step up as one of the team captains this year?
I mean, knowing Boyer for the past 3 years, he's been kind of just, the laid-back kind of guy, doesn't really like to say much. You'd really like to see him this year, kind of step into more of a leader role as his last year. And I think he can do that pretty well because he's a nice guy. He can talk to people, and he has a lot of knowledge in the game, and he's also very good at the game.
All right, so next player we're going to talk about will be the last year's Nightly News Rookie of the Year, Nate Wise. In his rookie year, he stepped into the starting shortstop role, which did belong to Zach Boyer my freshman year and your freshman year as well. Mm-hmm. And then last year they slid Boyer over to third, which I think was a huge help defensively because Boyer played a tremendous third base, and Nate Wise is also a great defender. But Nate Wise, he had a phenomenal year. Let's just say that. He's also one of the 2 key bats in our lineup. He was tied for second. He had 25 runs, 34 hits, 6 doubles, 3 homers as well, 28 RBIs, had a .425 batting average and an 1147 OPS. So him and Zach Boyer, a junior and a freshman, had 2 very similar stat lines, which I think is pretty cool. But Nate Wise, he stepped in coming in as a freshman and just balled out. So if you want to just talk about real quick about how you feel Nate Wise has been and will continue to be a huge help for this team.
I mean, I've been playing with Nate Wise for a very long time, and one word to describe him is just stud. He's a leader on the field and off the field. You see it from his average. Even Zach Sackerman at primal practice, Nathan is there helping out the little kids with fielding or hitting, which is, something that's nice to do. And I feel like he's going to be able to step up even more this year.
All right, now we're going to move on to last year's starting second baseman, Owen Zell. He hit .421 last year in 26 games, which is extremely impressive, but he's our leadoff guy. I said on the last podcast we were talking with Blake, and I said that he basically gets on to lead off the game like 90% of the time, which is evident because he had a .526 on base percentage. He had 6 RBIs, 16 walks to only 9 strikeouts, which is phenomenal. And he also led the team with 22 stolen bases, and he never got caught stealing once last year. Not only that at the plate, but he's also a phenomenal fielder. He had a .909 fielding percentage, only 5 errors in total last year, which is phenomenal. That's what you want for your starting second baseman leadoff hitter. So just speak to how Owen, since he's been here, since he came in with us our freshman year, how he's been like a lock at the leadoff spot.
I mean, one thing that you can say about Owen, and is his work ethic. He's in the gym constantly. He came in freshman year, and he was like a stick. And now look at him. I think he gained 20-some pounds, and he's getting better and better every year.
No, I will say Owen is definitely one of, if not the most hard-working dude on the team. So next guy, it'll be talking about last year's majority of the time starting first baseman. He's a senior this year, Adam Hoover. He had a .481 on base percentage as well to go along with a .283 batting average. He had 11 RBIs, 19 walks, which we always say that Hoovy is an on-base guy and he's a walking king. That man walks at least like once or twice a game, it seems. So just talk about how this is going to be his last year. I've spoke with him a couple times. This will be his last year. Just speak to how Hoovy is kind of just like the guy that's, if there's ever a game where, say, Zach Boyer or Nate Wise or Owen Zell isn't necessarily having the best day, how he's kind of just been like one of our more consistent hitters.
I mean, really the key is get people on, get them over, and get them in, and that's something Hoovy excels at. I mean, if nobody else gets on, he's either getting a walk or a single, and somebody else is driving him in.
For sure. All right, now the next guy, Gabe Kaufman. He was one of our outfielders, also spent some time at DH last year as a freshman. He hit .295 with a .380 on base percentage. Also hit 2 homers and 13 RBIs. So he's definitely one of the more, I'd say, prolific bats in our lineup. Just the fact that where he gets a hold of it, he hits it very hard. He also catches a lot of barrels, which is very key. So just speak to how you think Gabe is going to step up, not only just in the hitting department, but also in the fielding department, because I will say that I think he would admit it too, that Gabe necessarily wasn't at times the best fielder in the outfield. So speak to how, because I know he's also put in a lot of work in the outfield as well. So speak to how you think he's going to improve both hitting and fielding.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have that type of bat in the lineup. I mean, I think every single time I was watching him, he was getting a hit or putting it in play or something like that. You'd like to see him get his confidence in the outfield. I think that's what kind of he lacks sometimes. Just having that confidence to, track down a ball or throw a guy out at second or all that other stuff that has to do with the outfield.
No, yeah, it's not to say he doesn't have the tools, because, I mean, we know that he's a fast runner. I mean, he stole 10 bases last year and didn't get caught stealing. So he's definitely got the speed. He's got the arm strength. And he definitely has the tools to be a really good outfielder. It's just, like you said, sometimes I can see it when he's trying to track down a fly ball, like the lack of confidence and just like not being able to like get under the ball or get behind it or get in the right position to make a play. And sometimes it's tough. But again, I've seen he's also a hard worker, and I know that he's going to do everything you need to do to improve in the outfield. Next returning player, Cam Smiley. Last year, as a freshman, came in and pretty much assumed the starting catcher role once we learned that Steven Armstrong, that our starting catcher for freshman year, was not able to play. He stepped in, and he performed very well. I mean, he had a .420 on base percentage, which as a freshman is very impressive. He was a phenomenal backstop Like I can't remember too many times just in me pitching to him or anything along those lines where he really made any errors. I mean, he was phenomenal back there, especially as a freshman coming in.
No, yeah, I mean, he's phenomenal behind the plate. I mean, when you're throwing to him, it's just a different game. He knows the game. He knows how to throw to hitters, stuff like that. You really like to see him, tweak his swing a little bit, try to get on base a little bit more to, solidify that catching spot for the years to come.
No, yeah, I will say for sure, because going from Stevie to Cameron, I mean, Stevie was a phenomenal hitter, as well as a great catcher as well, had a cannon for an arm, and nobody ran on Stevie. Not saying that people run on Cam either, because he's also definitely has a very good arm and good transfer, but the 176 batting average is not ideal, but I know he was a freshman, and he's going to improve on it. Also, I will say another big thing with him, his two-strike hitting was something I honestly haven't really seen before. The fact how he would almost at sometimes seem like he wouldn't swing the bat until he get to two strikes, and then he would just hit one into center field. So just speak on how, as a freshman nonetheless, just his ability to just stay calm in two-strike counts.
Big shout out to West Perry on that one. I mean, I think that's their two-strike approach. They do a pretty good job there, teaching the kids just to put the ball in play, make the person field the ball, get you out. So
sure. All right, now next guy. He's going to be a senior this year as well. And others, we're going to have a lot of seniors this year. So unfortunately, after this year, we're going to have a lot of guys leave. So I think this is kind of plays into the factor of why we are saying small college World Series are bust. But spent a lot of time in the DH position last year and a little bit of time at third. Kevon Davis, he is definitely one of our most clutch hitters for sure. He stepped up in numerous spots last year, delivered a key extra base hitter, just getting on base, something like that. He hit .226 with a .409 on base percentage, drove in 8 RBIs as well as taking 7 walks. So just speak to how Kevon Davis, where there were several times, including the championship game when he had that clutch double down the line, I believe it was the 4th or 5th inning. Just speak to how Kevon Davis is definitely I'd say one of our more clutch hitters.
Yeah, I mean, Kevon, you bring him in off the bench or, you put him at first, give Hoovie a break. I mean, he's going to put the ball in play, and he's also going to hit the ball extremely hard. Last year I seen most of the times, he's lining out to center field or left field. So, I mean, that's what you got to do. And, I mean, some of those are going to drop at some point, and you're going to see your results.
So, next person we're talking about is Zach Hafner. He spent a good bit of time catching last year, as well as also getting a couple outings on the mound. Last year, in the games that he caught, he hit .263 with a .391 on base percentage. Also hit a home run against Christian Dom. Had 8 RBIs, as well as taking 3 walks. And then on the mound, Zach Hafner had a 6.5 ERA in 18 innings. Had 13 strikeouts to only 3 walks, which that's a really good K to walk ratio. Just speak to how Hafner, when he caught the couple games that he caught, how he was very influential and he called a very good game, as well as just his hitting ability as well as his pitching ability.
I mean, Zach Hafner, in clutch games, he shows a lot of emotion, so that can really be a good portion to a team. Somebody that conveys emotion, can get the rest of the team fired up. When he was on the mound, dude, he's locked in the whole time. Especially that one game in the net. I mean, he was locked in for, I think he threw 6 innings that game.
Yeah, he did. He shut down Penn State York, and that was also the second game of doubleheader, where the first game we lost 9-8, real tough game. But then he came in the second game and just shut them out. I believe he had a no-no going through 5.
I think so.
Hafner, that game was definitely one of the better pitch performances that I've seen being here. So, yeah, he's definitely one of the more reliable arms in our rotation. He's going to have to be huge in our rotation this year. So, last returning player that we'll speak on today, Jafrani Montero, utility player. I feel like he's going to get some substantial playing time in the outfield this year. Last year, in the couple games that he did play, he hit .333 with a .400 on base percentage, as well as driving in 2, walking 3 times, as well as stealing 6 bases in 16 games and 21 at-bats. So he's definitely one of, if not the fastest guy on the team. He's also a very good defender out in the outfield as well. He's a very solid hitter. To just speak to just how you think Frandy is going to step into being one of the key players and also probably getting a lot of substantial playing time in the outfield.
Just talking with Stern, to the past couple months, just talking about the new players, existing players. Frandy came up a lot. He has a lot of potential this year to start a lot of games and impact the team very well, especially like in the outfield and with his bat if he puts in the work.
Yes, for sure. And then, actually, I forgot. There's one more returning player from last year I'll talk about in the pitching rotation. Wyatt Kozer came as a freshman last year through 19 and 2/3 innings. He was very solid. I will say he definitely had a first rough couple starts, but he definitely was very solid for us last year. He had a 6.86 ERA, but also striking out 31 batters in 19 innings. That's amazing. I mean, his strikeout ability, he throws very hard, very good secondary pitches, and when he's locked in, I don't think a lot of teams in our conference are hitting him.
Yeah, no, I mean, Wyatt Kozer really came in last year and impressed a lot of us. Some games he's off, but when he's on, he's on. And especially this year, he's been working very hard. And I think he's actually a couple ticks up in his fastball. So we're hoping to see the command locked in for the whole year and also for him to stay healthy.
No, yeah, for sure. Because I was going to mention that last bit you mentioned, staying healthy, because we do know that he is kind of going through a little something with his hip. So we just hope that he'll be as close to 100% as he can be come time for opening day. First, incoming guy we'll talk about, Brian Lowen. He's a utility player. In the one scrimmage that we played, as well as a couple of times he was stepping up in live ABs at practice, he's definitely a very solid hitter. He's an all-around good athlete, very fast, good arm, good fielder. I mean, and he definitely has the right mindset. He definitely works very hard. So just speak to how Ryan is going to step up to be one of our key players as a freshman this year.
I mean, yeah, I think Brian can really step in, take a couple innings when Nate needs to pitch or Boyer needs to pitch, because he has, that dual threat role. He can play short, third, second, outfield, really wherever. And I feel like his bat is also pretty good from what I've seen so far. So I think he can make a big impact his freshman year.
All right, so next guy we'll be talking about, we're having a transfer coming in from Shippensburg University, Nick Joseph. He is an outfielder. He's probably going to be getting a good bit of playing time because in that one scrimmage that we had in the fall, I think he got on like 7 out of his 8 times at bat, and he was smoking the ball all day. I know that his first at bat against me, he smoked one off of me, and not saying it wasn't the best pitch. I mean, I put a slider that I thought was a decent pitch, and he went down and got it and smoked it. So he's definitely going to be a very good hitter. So you know more about him because I feel like you've played with him before. So just speak to how impactful Nick and his bat in the outfield is going to be this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge addition to our outfield, Our fielding in the outfield last year, we didn't have, the craziest amount of speed in the outfield. We had guys that could get to the ball, but I feel like this year with more speed, some of those balls that dropped last year are not going to be dropping this year. And with his bat, too, in the lineup, I mean, I've been playing with him for a while, and, he's always had a pretty good bat. Tremendous power.
Next incoming player we'll talk about a little bit, David Thomas. He is also an outfielder. He also has a very good bat, good all-around athlete, definitely a good mentality with playing. Just speak to how you think he's also going to be getting, I think he's probably going to be getting a good clip of playing time in the outfield as well as just getting a good clip of ABs. How do you think he's going to step into that role this year?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he could be a very, very good platoon bat and maybe even starting to take the starting job from whoever's in the outfield. I mean, from what I've seen from him, he can field very well, hit pretty well. So, I mean, it's kind of nice, hearing about this depth that we have in the outfield now that we didn't have last year.
Yes, I mean, for sure. I mean, we definitely had like guys that could play the outfield, but I mean, there wasn't necessarily the depth that we have this year. Because I mean, you had Ryan Stevens out in center field, which he won our Nightly News Gold Glove, and he definitely was very good out in center field. But I mean, I'd say he was more of a right fielder than a center fielder, just for the simple fact that he has a stronger arm, and he's not to say that he's not fast, but he's definitely not the quickest guy. He's not exactly your prototypical center fielder. And then, I mean, Gabe, as you mentioned, was a very good bat, but he didn't have the best fielding year last year. And then left field, Alex Lilia did play a very good left field, is also swinging a very good bat, but he was also, when he had to pitch, whenever he came in, it was kind of just like, we had to just send someone out there. Not saying that they couldn't, whoever we sent out there wasn't good, but I mean, like you said, we definitely have a lot of depth out in the outfield this year, which is going to be key. Next incoming player we'll be talking about, he is going to be one of our key pitchers this year, Jantony Garcia. Now, in the couple times that I've seen him pitch in the fall, he throws a lot of strikes. He has very good command on his fastball and his slider as well. I will say he doesn't necessarily throw the absolute hardest, but he does still have good velocity, I would say. And that slider does back up his fastball very well. He's definitely going to have to step up as one of the main guys in the pitching staff this year, because from what I've seen, he definitely has what it takes.
I mean, yeah, one of the keys really to our pitching staff this year is going to be strikes. I mean, you got All-Americans in the infield everywhere. I mean, you got Hoovie, excellent first baseman, Owen Zell, Nate Wise, Boyer. They're all amazing fielders. And I think the outfield is going to take a step up to fielding. So, I mean, if you're letting guys put the ball in play, let your fielders field the ball, I think we're going to do just fine this year.
Yes, for sure. And Jantony will definitely do a very good job at doing that. All right, so then we've talked about the majority of the returning players that are going to have a key role in the team this year. We talked about a couple of the incoming players who are definitely going to have to step up into a role to be leading to our success this year. So now we'll just briefly talk about who we think is going to be our starting nine, as well as who's going to be guys in the rotation. So in my opinion, I believe it'll be Cam Smiley behind the plate. You'll have Adam Hoover at first base. Obviously, I think the infield is pretty much locked up. I mean, it's going to be Cam behind the plate, and then all the Americans we have: Adam Hoover at first base, Owen Zell at second, Nate Wise at short, and Zach Boyer at third. I would say, I mean, to me, unless if someone steps in, I think that the infield is pretty much locked up.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the same thing. I mean, you really can't put it against these guys. They've put in the work year in, year out. You can tell it by their stats and stuff. I mean, best hitters on the team, so you really can't take them out of the lineup.
No, yeah, for sure. And I will say, again, you kind of, like you mentioned, you can't really hold it against them, because not only, again, they have put in the most work, and it shows just because of how they've performed on the field. I mean, they're always hitting, and they're a lot of our runs are produced from just those four guys. They're fielding, they do their job, they do what they need to do, and they're very solid on the field. I mean, there was times where I was pitching where I would get maybe 2 strikeouts a game, but I would get a lot of ground balls, and they would just get me out of innings and stuff. So they're definitely very, I think that they're definitely going to be very key, and that lineup in the infield is just going to be pretty much locked. Now, hopefully, God forbid, none of them get hurt or anything along those lines, or even if, like you mentioned, when Nate or Boyer have to come in to pitch, you'll have depth there as well. But I think that infield is pretty lockstead. So now into who the starting outfield should be. I think the guys, I will say, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be, there's going to be locks in the outfield. There's definitely going to be a lot of platooning and moving guys around. But I think the guys are going to be getting a lot of time in the outfield this year. Jafrani Montero is one of them. Nick Joseph, transfer from Shippensburg, is going to be getting a lot of playing time in the outfield. David Thomas as well, he's going to be getting a lot of outfield time. As well as a couple other guys, they're definitely going to be getting some playing time. To just speak to how, again, I know we've mentioned that the outfield depth is, we have a lot of outfield depth this year. Just speak to how that's going to be huge for us this year, just the amount of guys we have out there that can play and hit very well.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge due to the fact, if somebody falls in a slump, there's somebody else to back them up. You got like names like Tyrone Tobin, freshman, I feel like he could step up, if Randy has a bad game or something like that, or David Thomas has a bad game. Any of the other outfielders too, we have a lot of depth in the outfield now. I feel like any of those guys could step up.
All right, so then the last thing we're talking about just got the pitching staff and who's going to be having to eat up the most innings this year. I mean, we've already mentioned Wyatt Kozer. He's going to be, hopefully he can remain healthy because he's definitely going to be one of the key pitchers. And I think more than likely he will probably be the ace of the staff because what I've seen and how well he did in the second half last year and how I've seen him. Obviously, he's also a very hard worker, and how much I've seen him from that one outing that I saw him pitch in the fall. He definitely has a tick of his velocity. I think he threw 2 or 3 innings, and he was just absolutely dialed in. He was phenomenal. So I think he's probably going to be the ace of the staff for this year. So next guy up in the pitching staff, I think actually next 2 guys I'll talk about briefly is you and me. I will say I definitely didn't necessarily have my best year last year. Sometimes I lacked conviction on the mound. I didn't necessarily trust my stuff, and I didn't just throw the ball like I was my freshman year. My freshman year, I kind of just got the sign from Stevie, and I just threw the ball, and it worked. Last year I thought about it a little bit too much at times, and it definitely led to wildness as well as losing a little tick on my velocity. It just wasn't necessarily my best year, but I've also been, trying to improve upon that, and hopefully I can be returning back to that guy I was my freshman year. And then you, as you mentioned earlier, you come into relief or you're just pitching in almost every other game that we have, and I would say you're definitely our most dependable reliever that we have and will have as long as you're here. And even not as just relieving, but you're also going to be probably having to step in as a spot starter a couple times as well. So I think that's going to be key to just have you, that versatility not only can come in relief and shut down an inning, get us out of an inning, but as well as also starting a couple innings here and there.
No, yeah, I also agree. And I mean, what you were saying, the past is in the past. We're looking to the future now, and, it could be good years for everybody, hopefully.
No, yeah, for sure. And then another couple guys I'll talk about that'll be keys to the pitching staff. I mean, we also spoke about Jantony Garcia. He's going to be key. We're also probably going to have Cam Smiley getting a good bit of innings whenever he's not catching. Probably have Nate and Boyer whenever they're not playing the field. We'll have to put someone out there, and they'll probably get a couple innings. I'll also have Zach Hafner pitching a lot as well, because he's definitely going to be one of the keys of the starting rotation. We're going to have Matt Dodds returning in the winter term, and he's going to have to be, I think he'll be stepping into a more usable role in the relief spot, as well as Colby Criswell. We have Dylan Youngins. We have Adam Hoover every once in a while. Anderson Bridwell, Jordan Spatafor, Harvey McLean. I hope he's healthy. We definitely have a good amount of guys that can come in and either fulfill roles and starting roles or just bullpen and, get us out of some jams, eat up a couple innings. I will say, I mean, it's unfortunate that we lost a guy like Alex Loya, because in the couple times he did pitch last year, he was definitely one of our guys that would eat up a lot of innings, and he was the hardest thrower on the team. He had a really good, nasty off-speed pitch, as well as when he was locked in, and there was no one that was hitting him. So that's definitely kind of a key loss, but I will say, I still do have a lot of faith in this pitching staff.
Yeah, and I also like to, look at some of the new guys coming in. Caleb Banning, Christian Sanchez, and Jantony. I think all those guys are going to be able to make their mark on this year. Kind of show what they got in their first year here. Man, I know Christian's been putting in the work. Right-handed pitcher, probably going to slot in, middle relief somewhere in there, sometimes spot start. Got Caleb Banning as well, reliever. And then, I think Jantony could work for 4 or 5 in the rotation.
No, I think so for sure. All right, so that's pretty much it. We're going to wrap this up. Zerby, just talk about your final remarks and how you think this year is going to go for us and what you think. Obviously, we know the goal is Small College World Series, but just speak a little bit about how excited you are for this upcoming year.
I mean, yeah, I got a lot of hope for our team this year. We got a lot of new guys that I think could step up. We got all the existing guys back. So I think we have a good chance to make a good run this year.
All right, so that'll end this podcast. Zerby, I appreciate you having you on, and we'll see you next time.